What is up, William? All right, welcome to the show. We have a new person on the show. Ben is running around the streets of New York somewhere. So we have a guest on our show today who's going to host it with me. Hi, Will.
Hey Ron, how are you?
I am good. So welcome to STX Weekly. And as you can see, I've pulled up our fantastic caption telling our viewers, the millions of whom watch us every week, where you are and who you are, and tell us about what you do. Give us a little introduction.
Yeah, so I'm Will, founder of LiveDuel, and LiveDuel is a decentralized sports prediction market. So said another way, it's we're trying to decentralize the house model to give sports fans a fair price if they're looking to put their money where their mouth is and have a piece of the action on a sports game. So yeah, we're part of the Techstars Web3 cohort out of Dublin. I'm here in their offices today, but I also curate the sports tech newsletter for Techstars, and I've been doing that for about 3 years now. So.
Exactly, and I think it's about 3 years that we've known each other. So yeah, Will also runs a very cool newsletter. I think what's it called? Startup Digest Weekly or something?
Yeah, it's part of the Techstars network, and it's called Startup Digest, and then they have different verticals inside it. So I do the sports tech one, so it's called Sports Tech Live. So yeah, I actually like naming things live.
Yeah, so you can sign up for that newsletter, Sports Tech Live. But what I've also got, Will, because before we get into how we know each other and stuff, you want to do a quick spiel and tell everybody what Live Duel is? Let me pull up your website, man. Let's do this right.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I've been involved in the sports betting space for quite a long time. When I was doing my undergrad, I learned about arbitrage in economics class and went, that might be applicable to the sports betting industry. So ended up making quite a bit of money, especially for a college student. So kind of always been my passion of being into trading as well. So I worked as a prop trader for a number of years. So stocks, bonds, and commodities, that type of thing. So this idea kind of came in the last kind of 12 months or so. GameStop was going crazy. Everyone was, buying GameStop and Nokia and BlackBerry and all these kind of obscure stocks. But I got really interested in the user experience of the likes of Robinhood. So the genesis of the idea kind of came, what if Robinhood built a prediction market for sports and esports? Because sports and esports are something I'm really, really passionate about. So focusing on user experience, taking a complicated financial transaction and making it really easy was something that really appealed to me. And when you look at other sports betting companies, they're very similar in how they look and haven't really changed since the internet was invented. And they even kind of look like the coupons that were used in the early 1900s to tick a box of which team you wanted to pick. And then the blockchain element kind of came secondary. So when you look at prediction markets, volume is a big thing because if you're removing the house, you need to replace the house's liquidity in some way because the house is always open, so they'll take your money or take your bet, or take the other side of the bet. So that's where the decentralized finance piece comes in. So people can stake with us, and then we create a liquidity pool out of that. So Roan and Ben and me could potentially like stake 10,000 USD C with us. And then that's a 30K liquidity pool that end users are then betting against that in case there's not a fair market that's been created of equal number of participants on either side of, if it's Barcelona versus a really poor team, everyone's going to want to take Barcelona, right? So we use the liquidity pool to replace the house in that situation. So yeah, making great progress. Our demo day in Techstars is this day next week, so we're doing it in Dublin. We can share the links as well if people want to check out the live stream of it, but making a lot of good progress.
Very cool. Okay, so without, getting too much into the mechanics of sports betting specifically, actually, we're going to cover that on the show. But yeah, I know you're in the seemingly noisy offices of Techstars in Dublin, but we had a bit of a fun time looking for space for where to take this call from. But no, great to have you on the show. And obviously, because you curate a newsletter which goes out every week, one that I've been following for a while about what's happening in sports tech, it's great to, you'll have an interesting perspective on what we're going to talk about today as well. All right. With that said, we're going to jump right into our same format of the week. First, which as always starts in the funding space. What companies raised a lot of money this week? Well, starting with an Indian company called Fanclash raised 40 million. It's an esports fantasy startup, as the name clearly highlights. This is the TechCrunch article about it. Covered this on the show that there is so much happening in the esports space. It had Loco, we've had Pancrase, which is NFTs, but maybe doing something similar. Router, which is another company that we know well, which has raised a lot of money in the recent past. So East General in India is going bonkers, and fantasy is a subsegment which is going separately bonkers in India. So somebody who's combining the two is going to raise a lot of money, which is what Fanclash has done. Pretty fairly set up. I think the games that they focus on, the article goes into, they do. Interestingly, the article titles it as sleeper hits: PUBG Mobile, Call of Duty, and Dota 2. I wouldn't call them sleeper hits necessarily. I don't know why TechCrunch says that, but yeah, these are some of the biggest names in gaming and esports. So those are the titles that they target. And I think there is a quote from the founder, Richard Singh, which says, "We focus only on core esports tournament. We're not looking at casual gaming." So again, the way fantasy sports work is that fans are watching the pros play and gaming on that level. So this is the similar idea transported here. Yeah. So that is deal number one, Fanclash. All right. Deal number two is Playermaker, which is a wearable for football or soccer, depending on where you're watching the show from. So yeah, Playermakers, again, a London-based company. They've been doing this also. Israeli tech, which went and set up, I believe, in London. So yeah, it's an attachment, as you can see, which you strap to onto your football boot, and it gives you a bunch of data. Yeah, now, they've been around for a while and managed to raise $40 million. Again, a huge sum of money for a wearable company in one specific sport. I think that's the biggest takeaway from these guys. Takes any footwear into a connected solution that captures professional grade, technical, tactical, biomechanical, and physical data from motion. Yeah, and they want to go bigger, better, etc., etc. Who they raise money from? Ventura Capital, MIG Capital, Pegasus Tech, and a bunch of others. None of these are names that I have to say I'm familiar with, not in sports tech space. And the third one is actually Buzzer, and we actually found an SEC filing where they raised 8.5 million, but they're trying to raise million, and they're also cutting jobs. So I think they're trying to make the company a bit lean. This is a recent news article. They raised 20 million last year, and they want to raise another 20 million. What is Buzzer? Yeah, they basically make your sports more accessible to micropayments. Yeah, so you can use the Buzzer app and give you live updates. Say if you were watching the NBA Finals, it would tell you, hey, this is the last quarter, stats going crazy, and download the Buzzer app and go into uh, $5 for the game. You can buy for maybe a couple dollars. So they create micropayments within sports. These are three stories. Will, which startup do you like the most of three?
I guess covering a broad range of the sports tech ecosystem, which is quite broad, obviously, as you know, covering a lot of the sports tech with this new show and with the Sport Tech X world. Same with the Sports Tech Live one. But yeah, I think the most interesting for me is Fanclash. Obviously, Dream 11 has been a huge player. Unicorn out of India in terms of fantasy. Obviously, focusing on cricket. But as you kind of alluded to there, esports in India is just exploding. Obviously, got a huge market, a lot of interested gamers. I think it's like 300 million gamers. So it's no surprise that fantasy plus gaming and esports has led to such a big round. it'll be interesting to see where they can kind of take it. Can they grow outside of India with it? And what kind of international tournaments they cover. So I'm not 100% sure on the esports tournament calendar in India. So I'm guessing they'll be kind of tapping into the different World Cups and big tournaments in Europe, US, as well as kind of local tournaments in India. But yeah, esports is the fastest growing sport in the world. Fantasy is a great way to engage fans that are not just watching, but want to be actively participating and winning prizes and showing their knowledge, being able to show off against others. So yeah, I think that's probably my favorite one. Buzzer as well is just a really interesting one because I'm obsessed with the streaming wars and the content of live sports because there's huge money there, and they've got an interesting strategy of kind of selling pieces of games essentially, which I think is fascinating. The last 10 minutes of every game, could be edge of the seat stuff. And if they can bring a greater audience that's not stepping on the toes of exclusive deals for, as you mentioned, like the NBA finals or something, then I think it's a win-win. But yeah, interesting that they're laying off as well as raising. So yeah, it might not all be rosy because it's a difficult game, capital intensive.
Yeah, probably not. But yeah, I mean, I've seen you talk about it a lot in your newsletter about the different streaming wars. We actually recently, the last couple of weeks, the top story has been Apple taking sports so much more seriously than before. They recently acquired MLS rights. We've been talking about Netflix getting into Formula One forever. Do you think they'll buy rights? I mean, are you going to see more? I mean, Amazon has been bidding for various digital rights for a while now. They, in fact, in the IPL conversation, yeah. So do you just see more of these tech giants, tech companies starting to get into the bidding wars for traditional sports rights?
Yeah, absolutely. Like the writing's been on the wall for a long time that people want to watch more live sport, and everyone's got a smartphone strapped to their hand at all times, so it just makes sense that games will be streamed. Yeah, I guess it's taken Apple a long time. There's been kind of rumored to be interested in different rights that have come up over the last couple of years, but it seems like this year there's been a major shift. The Friday night deals with the Major League Baseball, and now with the MLS. So it'll be interesting to see what their first kind of international deal is. There's also kind of been talks about them picking up the NFL Sunday Ticket, which is currently held by DirecTV, and that's kind of the big kind of missing link at the moment in terms of the NFL rights for the next few years, because as you mentioned, Amazon have taken rights there as well. They've been very active in the UK as well, picking up about 20 to 30 games a season. So yeah, the big surprising factor is YouTube or Google haven't really been in this space yet. I know they have their YouTube TV where they've got other sports channels that they stream, so they haven't bid for any of the rights. But yeah, if everyone else is doing it, I'd say it won't be long before Google or YouTube are starting bidding for rights too.
Interestingly, I mean, you mentioned YouTube because we're going to move to the next story pretty quickly, but YouTube would have partners of the NBA finals. So YouTube TV was all over. In fact, in the UK, I could watch the game for free on YouTube. The finals, not just on Sky, but on YouTube as well. I found that interesting. I don't know if that's because I'm a YouTube premium holder or if that's for everyone. But so they started to have a bit of the conversation, but yeah, they're not bidding for rights in the same way. But just to wrap that up, I think I've been reading a couple of really interesting articles on is traditional broadcaster the best way to maximize reach, and I think that's the main conversation there. For Apple to take the MLS to a whole wider audience, and Netflix is 220 million whatever subscribers. If they take sports to that audience, is that way of increasing the reach, or if the traditional broadcasters, which have like deeper mechanics and like age-old mechanics of how to push out content to audiences, is that the way to go? I think only time will tell. Interesting conversation.
Free to air as well is a huge kind of part to play as well. The English Premier League rugby, they've kind of done a deal now where they've gone some free to air stuff as well, just because it increases their audience tenfold. F1 last year did kind of free to air stuff with YouTube in Germany and a couple of other jurisdictions, and it was the most watched race pending the final because it was such a dramatic end to the F1 season. But yeah, free to air and stuff on YouTube is a huge potential as well. Sorry for the background noise.
Bill is going in and out of his of his audio. But okay, cool. Okay, moving on to the next story. We'll keep the rest of it pretty brief because actually the rest of the stories are a bit fun, but they're not super crazy, amazing. Let's say a slowish sports week. So yeah, more AR in sports. We've seen the US Open, the PGA Tour have been running a partnership with their own AR app for a while. They've got yeah, I don't know if you can see it, but basically, yeah, you can see the golf course um, and introduced version of the which actually it looks somewhat interesting. So yeah, if you, if you pull up video on Twitter, I don't know if you will, but basically the name of every player, yeah, actually here it is, but the name of every player that ever wins the Stanley Cup goes up on the Stanley Cup. Ooh, I think I've lost Will. There you
Yeah,
go. I've got you back now.
but looks like I'm back.
Yeah, it's you can see the names of all the players who ever won it. Do you watch the NHL at all, bro?
Not really. Yeah, I did back when I was much younger. I've been to a couple of games and they're very, very entertaining. But yeah, football and NFL, bit of basketball would be my main sports.
One who's having problems with Will's connection, or if it's just not audible. Drop me a comment, drop me a message in the chat if this is not working so well. But yeah, I mean, we were just talking about the NHL. Some more AR. We've been seeing this happen more and more. That different types of applications for AR in that story.
Yeah, I think it's impressive to see AR develop over time. Obviously, AR has been around for quite a while, but it's really cool seeing big sports brands kind of taking it seriously. And it might seem quite marketing driven, and gimmicky driven, but there is huge potential use cases over time. And as the technology gets better, it's only going to improve, and more people are going to be having VR and AR experiences to kind of couple with their enjoyment of big sporting tournaments. So yeah, it's great to see both the PGA Tour and NHL doing something in this space.
Yeah, well, they've been doing some stuff for a while, but again, just AR seems like a bit of fun. It's just a bit of driving engagement. I don't know how serious or how cool it is, or how long term, like what the outcome is. But okay, cool. On to the next one. Again, not a major story, but Nielsen and LaLiga Tech released a study recently, which interviewed about 20,000 fans, and yeah, you can download it. I have here. It was a fan engagement study talking about different aspects of the fan, but some highlights, which is what Techie article gives us, that younger fans, so which are aged, I think, younger than 34 years old, actually watch more sports than slightly older fans, which I was maybe a bit surprised by. And nearly half of them, 47%, yeah, 46%, watch it on multiple devices at the same time. So every second fan. Any surprises there? I don't think so, no?
I'm slightly out of that study demographic, but that's exactly what my usage is. Multiple sports. I only mentioned a few of the ones that I follow, and any screen, I have available to me, if there's multiple games on, I'll have a game on each.
Yeah, for sure. But what are you doing? Are you always chatting with friends? Is that the main thing that you're doing? Are you
Yeah,
looking for stats? Are you what is your action?
a combination, obviously watching the game itself, maybe some Twitter or some group messages, stats. Big fan of getting kind of live stats because it's great watching a game and they display it on screen. Once every 15 minutes, they'll give a possession stat or something, but I want to know what I want to know. I don't want to have to rely on the TV producer saying, okay, now let's show this, that. But obviously, being into the sports betting, always kind of interested to see what the odds are. And, odds are just probabilities of who's going to win. So it's giving you that extra kind of bit of information, whether you want to bet or not. You can have a somewhat predictive model to what's going to happen, which I think every sports fan wants to know what's going to happen and they have an opinion of what's going to happen. So yeah, there's multiple apps that sports fans use while they're watching a game.
Yeah, absolutely. Just last one, just to highlight one little bit of stat, like of 41% of watching sports events through streaming platforms. Half of them are also watching simultaneously on traditional TV, which I found interesting. So you're watching the thing while streaming and on TV, and also on your phone, maybe. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
that's one or two screens too many. But maybe that's just me.
yeah.
All
Like
right. Well,
I just want to make one point
go
there.
ahead.
If you have a TV subscription or if there's free to air games on, you're going to watch it on that if you already have it. But with so many games being covered live, you're going to need a second device if you want to watch both games or just see what's kind of happening. And that's exactly what I do.
Yeah, sounds about right. I think that's to do. Now, while you were talking, I was trying to bring up the next story, but I have failed on it. I just closed the wrong window. But the next one is actually a nice story, which talks about FIFA to identify hate speech. We saw a similar story last week. A camera in Dutch football specifically, that is Feyenoord, PSV, and Naveen, were using facial recognition software based on computer vision. So the camera is doing the work to identify people who are doing making racist chants and stuff like that. And now FIFA is going to start adopting tech monitor hate speech on media, though. So this is outside of the stadium, which I think is harder, a much bigger canvas, and more difficult to police. But I think the growing is important. So there obviously there's a problem of abuse in social media, whether it's to players, whether it's coaches, or to other fans. This is a huge issue for a while, and we don't normally talk about FIFA doing good things. This is very rarely uttered in the same sentence, but this is a no-brainer and one that should be supported. That they're going to be tracked. They had tracked over 400,000 posts on social media during the Euro 2020 and the 2021 Africa Cup of Nations, and over 50% of players received some form of like abuse, which is beyond, hey, that guy was shit, or that was a bad pass, or whatever. Where it goes beyond that, discriminatory abuse, whether it's homophobic or racist or in some form like that. So the use of technology, I mean, it's a big problem with the flag, and they want to, let's say, police this better. Coming, not bad, no, decent story.
Yeah, like it's such a big issue, and sports stars are obviously very much in the public eye, and every week they're putting themselves out there, and people take their passion for sports too far sometimes. So it'll be interesting to see how effective this is, because like it's shocking numbers of people that have received threats or some certain types of abuses, and there's been very public profile ones of Marcus Rashford and Raheem Sterling in the past, and it's absolutely terrible. Even Harry Maguire, being so bad that death threats coming in, like that's just absolutely insane. Like social media has been great for a lot of things, but it's also been very, very bad. That it's just kind of opened up the world of hate in a lot of ways. So it's good to see things that are trying to combat it. So I guess we can monitor this over time, because it's not now we have AI, it's all going to disappear. So yeah, it'd be interesting to circle back after the World Cup and see how effective it's been.
Yeah, I think the question I asked Ben this last week, whether you think that, like, so normally the first action is when you identify somebody like this, and that was in the context of the previous story, which is in stadium racism or in stadium hate speech, which is you ban the perpetrator, right? Get them out of the stadium, ban them from life, whatever it is in the sort. But do you think there should be more action? Do you think there should be action which affects that person outside of sport? For example, maybe there's criminal proceedings, or maybe they get fired from their job, or they get a financial, just like a penalty that they have to pay. Like, to really stamp it out, should it go beyond their, let's say, sporting?
Yes, like obviously the different countries have different rules to hate speech and abuse, and I think if someone's broken the law in their country, that should be followed up with the police. To say that sports should have a say in what happens to those people, I think they should just report it to the police if there has been an issue and leave the police deal with it. I want to see sports being something positive and doing it for good. And if they're kind of getting it in the judge and jury, then I think that's probably overstepping sports mark. I just want to focus on good sport, good positive sporting outcomes. But if the laws of the country dictate that what that person did in the stadium or online is against the law, then the book should be thrown at them, because it's not what I want to see the world of sports becoming.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's fair, but I guess there's a feeling that more should be done. Just to ramp it out, but yeah, to stamp it out rather. But there is work happening, which is great to see. All right, Will, I'm actually gonna. I don't know if you want to introduce the last story. We're gonna jump to that, and since I have you on the show, we're gonna talk about sports betting. It seems like that's your favorite topic. Yeah, so more legalization of sports betting. We've seen this happen in the US. I don't know if you've got a chance to check out the story.
Yeah.
You want to talk about it? What's happening in Japan and Brazil?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, obviously, Murphy versus NCAA 4 years ago now kind of overturned the sports betting laws in America that led states to dictate their own rules, and that's what we're seeing kind of roll out. I think 21 states have legalized in the US, 9 more oncoming. The other 20 are expected to follow over time. There's a lot of bills being discussed, including 2 in California that are coming up for votes at the end of this year. One kind of more with the land-based casinos, and one kind of put forward by the kind of online casinos. So it'll be interesting to see who kind of wins that debate, and even having 2 might be confusing to California citizens. So California will be a huge market, just like New York was at the start of this year. 10 billion wagered in the first 10 weeks of sports legalization in New York is mind-blowing. But yeah, obviously Japan and Brazil are 2 other massive markets, and it's sports betting is being kind of seen as unsavory for many years. Very kind of underground or mafia driven, and it's led to match fixing, and it even kind of mentions that in the article as being a big kind of opposition argument to legalizing in Japan. But my view is, legalization is only good for rooting out all the potential downsides. So, it's a big driver of revenue. Mark Cuban famously said every franchise in America just doubled their value because of sports betting, because it's inherently a monetization strategy because there's money involved, right? So, and that's kind of why Japan want to legalize as well. It seems that they're looking to grow the value of sports in the country. Obviously, they had the Tokyo Olympics, and they're obviously looking to kind of drive on Japan as a sporting country. My kind of issues with regulation is that every country has done their own kind of approach to it. There's no kind of joined up thinking. And when you kind of over-regulate, you're encouraging the black market to reappear. So the other story about Brazil, that's been delayed because Bolsonaro is going for re-election in October, so it's kind of been put on hold. I think the big idea was to legalize it before the World Cup. Because last World Cup, there was 132 billion gambled. So it's obviously probably going to grow because America is now legalized. So it could be 150 billion or 200 billion even. And Brazil are obviously looking to kind of legalize and formalize. But that last sentence there, at the end of that first sentence, a 4 million fee, that's a huge price for companies to pay for a licensing fee. Granted, it's proposed to be 5 years, but $1 million a year is is absolutely huge, and it's very, I guess, kind of protectionist for big companies. So me as a startup,
Yep.
Are we going to be able to contribute in that kind of market? Absolutely not. So I would like to see a fair kind of approach that allows for innovation, because we're trying to disrupt centuries old business model that puts the house at the top and they always win, and sports fans kind of get a bad deal. So, by removing us, you just kind of protect the big boys. So yeah, I'd like to see a fairer kind of approach to legalization.
Well, I mean, I think the point, maybe the point over there, fly-by-night operators who just show up maybe for a short period of time, and then disappear with a bunch of money in their pockets. But at the same time, yeah, you're right. There's enough space for innovation. Last point of that story is also, I mean, so yeah, you covered it, that there's so much happening in the US with sports betting. It's spreading all over the world. The conversation, yeah, in Brazil is on hold, but I just wanted to flag it that it's happening in Brazil. There's a now this week the story broke of the conversation happening more openly in Japan. It's been happening in India for a while, which is why fantasy sports in India plays a huge role. But just lastly, and actually you brought this to my attention, the story of how betting gets legitimized is that they will bring in top athletes and bring in top stars or celebrities, etc., to say, hey, okay, if Tom Brady comes and tells you to start putting money into sports betting, you suddenly feel a bit better, right? And it's not Tom Brady specifically. Right now, this is Peyton Manning, whose company has been hired to produce videos and podcasts to create to focus on betting related content. They've been hired by Caesars Entertainment, one of the new sports books that have been launched, right? So adding celebrities and finding new ways, because betting is one of the, let's say, biggest spenders for customer acquisition costs, right? They are happy to throw in money to get a new user because they understand the lifetime value of a user is really, really premium. So you will see betting companies spending a lot of money on ads, is getting legalized in different states. This article also summarizes that. But they're also now into digital marketing, so going beyond TV ads. But yeah, whether it's podcasts, social media, TikTok videos, blah, 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 tapping influencers to do that marketing for them, tap the influencers and celebrities. So this becomes like the roadmap that everything that's happening in America will start happening in all these other markets. Whether it's Brazil, whether it's Japan, it's India, like all of these markets, as they are following that US playbook of, hey, okay, these are what the broadcasters are doing, and that's doing well. So creating betting specific broadcasts with separate commentators, separate graphics, everything. It's a betting specific broadcast, right? Of the same sport. What kind of marketing tools they use, what kind of market adoption tools they use. So a lot of this, what's happening in the US, will become the blueprint for the rest of the world. Last point to add, like a lot of this is being sped up. The catalyst for this has been COVID. The revenue hit that a lot of teams, sports, it's going to make up that revenue by looking to other sources, which it didn't do before. So COVID has accelerated the conversation around sports betting. There's no question about that. And I guess that's what guys like you, wherever there is a crisis, there is an opportunity. So maybe LiveDeal can do something and try to make it, let's say, as you said, less in favor of the house and more easier for the user to not lose a ton of money just in the back of one bad bet.
Yeah, absolutely, and yeah, you're dead right. And the US kind of legalizing, I think that's kind of brought other countries' attention to it, because gambling's been around since the dawn of time, really, and the sports book model's been around for a couple of centuries of how we kind of see it today. But I think it's kind of inherent in every kind of human nature. If you're a sports fan, you kind of want to know what's going to happen, or you want to think so you want to put your money where your mouth is. So it's happening in every country in the world, whether it's legal or not. And, kind of varies of how it actually operates. So I think it's very beneficial for the countries to make up for COVID, because there's tax revenue coming in, and that's a big reason why New York legalized, and the results kind of speak for themselves, that things are just absolutely off the charts. Also good for sports teams and leagues that didn't have fans in the stadium for 18 months in some countries, which puts a huge hole in their revenues. So sports betting and fantasy sports previously were huge ways to kind of monetize and offer fans something new and give them a place to kind of engage and enjoy sports more, because at the end of the day, sport is more enjoyable when there's money on it. Like, you might not be a fan of the team.
Yeah, man, I enjoy sports plenty. I don't put money on sports. I enjoy my fantasy sports. But yeah, I can see the use case. Obviously, if you're making money, it's much more enjoyable.
Okay.
Right?
The next time Spurs are playing Man United, let's have €5 each on it, and we'll see if it's more enjoyable or more painful if your team loses.
Yeah, but actually, I think United did all right versus Spurs this season. No, we
Yes,
won 2-0. I think was it
2-0 and
2
3-0.
2-0 at yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, one of the few highlights of my United season. So yeah, just we got obviously Will is a Spurs fan. I'm a United fan, and we've had a few good nights arguing about who's less shit. Maybe right now is a better way to put it.
Yeah, we're back on the ups though, so hopefully that debate is settled for this season at least.
Yeah, you're doing all right. I think. Yeah. For last season for sure. For this season, I don't know. Maybe 10 hard, 1 hard, 2 hard, 3 hard, 4 hard, 5 hard. We'll have something to say.
And
All
that's
right, man. Well, that's actually we've gone over, but that's our show.
perfect. Thanks for having me. Absolute pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks, and yeah, check out the newsletter. That's obviously where you can follow us, but that is LiveView, their website. You can follow Will. All right, man.
Perfect.
Hopefully,
Thanks.
I'll have you back on the show at some other time.
Excellent. So yeah, just to say, we're kind of doing our demo day next Thursday. If you go to our website, there's a wait list there. Our private alpha will be launching on demo day. So if you're interested in sports and sports betting and crypto, come check us out.
All right, you guys do that. See you next week. Ciao.
Bye.